Anytime you're going to spend money, obviously, if you want to create some sort of threshold where if it's over $100 or over $200, like, is this going to add value to my life? I think that would be something that would be helpful for anybody, regardless of where you're at, but certainly starting out.
I love talking about increasing your net worth. This is our barometer for wealth building success. Today, we're going to speak with a husband and a father who achieved $1 million net worth at 33 years old. Mike Kenny is our guest today. Mike lives with his wife and little girl in Ottawa, Ontario, and they love the outdoors, especially hiking and visiting parks. Welcome to the show, Mike.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So let's talk about your success here. When did you start paying attention to your finances that helped you get to where you are today?
I would say probably in university, and then more specifically, probably when I finished my undergrad degree. I moved out from my parents' place for the first time and went to another city to get my teaching degree. And that was the first time where, expenses were higher or more realistic, I suppose, as an adult, and just paying more attention to spending and sort of the costs of life. And so I'd say probably at that point, so I would have been maybe 22, 23 at the time, just really starting to kind of, pay attention to those things.
That's incredible. So 22, 23, did you find some sort of inspiration, some book, did a parent get under your ear? Like what was it that said, hey, I'm going to start paying attention to this stuff?
Yeah. I mean, I think I'm a little bit fortunate in that my wiring is such that I've always sort of had an idea around money and the value of it, and that we should sort of be stewards of it. And so I think that just comes naturally. I don't know if maybe genetics perhaps, but I don't, something sort of inside of me that sort of keeps track of those things. But yeah, I didn't do anything necessarily reading. My parents didn't necessarily sort of like instill that stuff proactively into us. I think it was just sort of like, I'm on my own and there's no sort of fallback or backdrop here. I'm going to have to sort of figure things out. And so maybe a little bit of reading here and there, but mostly just, paying attention to where I was spending and why I was spending, I guess.
Well, you mentioned teaching. So can you tell us what you do for a living, or what you have done for a living over this decade, and maybe what your wife does as well for income?
So I'm a high school teacher in Ottawa, Ontario, Canada, and my wife is a nurse. She's a part-time nurse now. I also run my own business, and we have one rental property that also generates some income for us.
Between your business, a rental property, your income, and your wife's income, you guys have a good amount coming in. And so can you talk a little bit about your net worth? How does that break down? What does that consist of?
Pretty much 75% real estate, and then between the two properties, like our primary residence and our rental, and then 25% stocks and cash.
So you mentioned the rental property. Tell us a little bit about that. When did you buy that? Was that like your first home and then it turned into a rental? How did that all work?
Yeah, so I bought that pretty well right out of finishing my teaching degree. I came back from Toronto where I was doing my teaching degree, moved back in with my parents for a short period of time, and was sort of like, all right, I have a little bit of money here. I don't really want to be living at home much longer. What do I do with this? And so I bought a new build townhome about sort of 15, 20 minutes west of where my parents were living at the time. And so I moved in. I got a couple roommates to help pay the mortgage. It worked out really well. And then I had a couple friends that were just sort of wanting to move out on their own, but didn't necessarily want to be spending the amount of money required for, a 1-bedroom or 2-bedroom closer to downtown type of thing. So gave me some company and also helped pay down the mortgage, because at that time I didn't have a permanent teaching job. I was just trying to break into the profession. So my income was very hit or miss from month to month. So looking back, it was actually probably fairly risky in terms of taking on some debt there and not necessarily having consistent flow of income. But I was able to make it work with some odd jobs, and I just started my business then as well. So that helped create a bit of a buffer and a little bit more seasonal income anyway coming in. And and then eventually I moved out. I found someone to fill my room. So I was renting essentially 3 rooms at that time. Became a bit of a headache. So then eventually we sort of dissolved that and then found a young couple to move in and rent from us. And it's been smooth sailing, knock on wood, ever since. It's been over 4 years that this couple's been there. And they're great tenants, and we don't hear much from them. So it's the best kind of income.
Absolutely, yeah. Money that comes in consistently and not a lot of bother to take care of it. That's great. So talk about the stock side of things. You said 25% stocks, cash, things like that. So what have you done to invest for your future that sort of, I guess, has kept things simple for you?
I only really started looking at stock market investing maybe 3 years ago, and I have a teaching friend who's 10 or 12 years older than I am and has been very into it himself. And he actually just retired early from teaching, and so he'll sort of reinvent himself a little bit. He's got 2 kids and spends more time with them. Anyways, all that to say is he's sort of showed me the ropes in terms of that side of things. So nothing overly complicated at this point. I'm still trying to learn, and I'm, not necessarily fully confident, particularly in the market we're in right now, to dump it all in there. But yeah, just a mix of sort of broader market, ETF style investing, and then a few sort of stock picks here and there. So I had a friend that's in the advising world, and he kind of calls that core and explore. So kind of have some core holdings, and then a few just sort of one-offs because I'm interested in it and like doing a little bit of research. And then and then the cash is just sort of on the side with no huge plans for it yet, but we'll kind of see what works.
I like that term, core and explore. That's a good way to look at it too, because the explore part could be a lot of fun and also volatile, but can be worth it if you have some some money dedicated in there. So based on your story that I'm hearing from like early 20s to now in your early 30s, I didn't hear much about a windfall or inheritance that helped contribute to this millionaire success. Is that true?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, no inheritances or windfalls. I mean, I think a lot of luck. I mean, especially here in Canada, in particular the city we live in, there's just been a huge increase in property values. So that's basically been the single biggest factor, especially recently, that's kind of pushed our net worth to that range anyway, just with those 2 properties increasing in value.
Yeah, I've heard from some folks that Toronto, where you originally, or the Toronto area, is likening to like New York City, where it's just like crazy prices. Is Ottawa the same way?
Yeah, so Ottawa definitely has not been like Toronto. We're about 4.5-hour drive away from Toronto, and we've always trailed their increases, but I would say the last maybe 18 months, we've kept pace relative to, they're already sort of like, that much higher than us for a comparable property. But many people considered Ottawa to be undervalued for a long time. So when they were seeing huge increases, we weren't seeing those, but the last 18 months we had. So I would say probably, depending on the neighborhood, if you added sort of 25-30% to a comparable property. Yeah.
So I talked to a young Canadian couple a couple years ago that was so frustrated with the real estate market. They just said, you know what, forget it. We're just going to dump all our money into the stock market and then just rent or live wherever we want to live. Did you ever find yourself frustrated with the real estate market when you were trying to get your second home, where you're just like, man, this is insane?
Yeah, no, it's interesting because I think we were fortunate, again, timing wise. We bought at a time when you could actually go look at a house, think about it, and put an offer in. So that was back in 2016. We bought our primary residence, and we actually just recently moved. So that one, we put a basement apartment in it, and so we had actually, I guess, a second flow of rental income for a while when it was just my wife and I. And then this property that we're in now just sort of came up, same neighborhood, just bigger home, bigger lot, and because the other one had decreased so much in value, we decided we would sort of upgrade. But yeah, to answer your question, we were fortunate in that we didn't really have to navigate the current situation, just given that basically our most recent move, we're just trading up and using the equity from our old place. So we don't, because we're already in the market, whereas my brother and sister-in-law are looking, and like, I don't even know how to advise because it's a different time than when we got in. And so I can totally empathize with that sentiment. If we were trying to get in now, it would be a different conversation. It would probably be, can we find a good place to rent, and then, do the ETF route, and then maybe if there's a downturn, or then relocate somewhere potentially where housing isn't quite as expensive. But
well, I like what you guys have done. You've gotten a nice rental property and a good flow of income there. and you also have a great place to live for your young family as it grows. Now, let's talk about any tools or anything that have helped you along the way. Do you have any sort of fintech tools that you like to use that help you keep track of things, or are you a pen and paper kind of guy? What do you like to do?
I'd say I'm old school. We tried Mint for a time, just to sort of track the coming and going. I felt we needed to sort of keep up with it pretty proactively, and it just wasn't something that we kind of kept up with. So yeah, I would say we're kind of just basic, Excel spreadsheet kind of thing for a budget, and then every several months we'll kind of look at our credit card statements and sort of make sure that we are sort of keeping in track with what we budgeted for, and same thing with sort of net worth tracking, just a basic spreadsheet. So yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, keeping it easy. I love it. Any other financial hacks that you're thinking of, like, hey, this was really helpful for me as I did all my journey here, or anything else that pops up like that?
Yeah, not really. I mean, that sort of house hacking that I was able to do. Yeah, it seemed to work, right? I mean, it's easy to say that hindsight's always 2020. It would be again, because of the increase in property values here, that would be a harder thing to pull off these days, but it worked out in our situation, and just because of, you're using leverage, which, as I'm sure you know, leverage can go both ways, but that's been probably the single biggest factor, is doing the house hacking thing, and then experiencing the kind of ride upwards in the property values.
Yeah, I love that. I did the similar thing to you. I bought my house right out of college, and I think before the term was around, house hacking out. That's what I was doing. I find some dudes off of Craigslist and make some new friends, and then have them help you pay down the house. So it worked out well for me too over the long term. Let's talk about what your dreams and goals are now. You guys have hit $1 million net worth as a family in your young 30s. What goals and dreams do you have now as you look forward, call it the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, it's funny because I was thinking about this question prior to hopping on here, and I can't say that we have a specific goal or set of goals in mind. I think one sort of small thing that's always been in the back of my mind, and something my wife and I have spoken about, is just being in a place where she doesn't have to work, at least work for income. And that's something that I think we're almost at, kind of thing, with our ins and outs. And yeah, something that maybe, when the kids are growing, she wants to move back to a place where she wants to work for pay more often, but just something where it gives us the flexibility, whether we actually, do that full on or not. So I would say that's kind of a tangible goal we'd have in mind. Yeah, I think just using money as a tool would be our sort of guiding star. So just, we've been fortunate, and are in a pretty comfortable place. And so I think the last thing we should probably be doing is trying to continue to accumulate and losing sight of sort of what we do have and how we can use that, because ultimately you can't take it with you. And something that we want to think about is just being intentional about how we spend money for ourselves, but then how we give and help other people out too, I guess.
I love that. Well, you're giving today too by sharing your story and motivating others. So if somebody's listening right now and they want to become a millionaire like you, what would be one piece of advice that you'd give them to get started?
Don't focus on a number. So I know it's, you look at SMART goals and they say, be specific with where you're trying to reach. I think with something like finances, first of all, everyone's situation is different. The city you live in is different. The cost of living, all those things are dynamic, right? So I don't think it's fair to, or necessarily helpful to put a number on it. I would say that, just start off by being intentional, and how you would do that, in my opinion, would be anytime you're going to spend money, obviously, if you want to create some sort of threshold where if it's over $100 or over $200, like, is this going to add value to my life? I think that would be something that would be helpful for anybody, regardless of where you're at, but certainly starting out, because I think oftentimes people that maybe aren't where they want to be financially, or aren't sure where to start or what to do, it usually has to do with spending and sort of just inconsistent or misguided spending. And so I think, asking that question of yourself: will this purchase, regardless whether it's service, product, is it going to add value to my life? And beyond just the initial dopamine hit of, oh, look at this Amazon package that showed up, but like, truly, is it going to make our lives better in some sort of tangible way? And if you're really, really struggling to come up with a meaningful answer, you might want to revisit whether that's something that you should be sort of buying or not. So I would say, use that as your starting point, because I think it's easier to control spending initially anyway than it is to control income. So if you can kind of manage the spending side, then that's helpful to kind of get you going.
I think that's a great basis for consideration for anything really in life, whether it's a commitment or a purchase. Take that, whatever, call it 5 minutes or sit on it overnight. Leave it in the cart, leave it in the Amazon cart for the night, and then decide tomorrow, do you still need that or want that as much as you can? Because everything that we say yes to, we're saying no to other things as well. So I think that's a great point. So tell us a little bit about your business, because I think that's super interesting. I took a look at the website, and maybe if people want to contact you, they can do it through that route as well.
Yeah, so it's Right Way Basketball is the name of the business. So started out as just kind of a seasonal kind of Christmas break, March break, a little bit of stuff in the summer for youth to learn how to play basketball or to refine their skills. And then it's kind of branched off into, training coaches, to partnerships with kind of local basketball clubs where we'll sort of take on certain things for them or run some coach training or coach clinics for them. And so it's been a fun outlet for me, just sort of having a background in basketball and also sort of the teaching side. So it's kind of the best of both of those worlds. And then, to be able to, have a business out of it that creates a bit of income is also helpful. So I would say, like, I've started using my personal Twitter more often. So I would say that's probably the best place for people if they want to contact me. I'm sort of an infrequent tweeter, but I think my private messages are open. So if someone wanted to send a message through there. So I'm Mike_Kenny3 on Twitter. Check me out there. Yeah.
Excellent. Mike, thanks so much for your time today. I appreciate it. Not only are you giving back and teaching with your small business and your full-time job, but you're doing it today too. I really appreciate you giving back and helping people get to the next level. Thanks so much.
No problem. Thanks for having me, Andy.